Hi friends, it's Rich here. I help produce the podcast. This episode discusses the topic of miscarriage quite prominently, and so we just wanted to mention that in advance for anyone who might find it particularly impacting. Thanks so much. On with the episode.
Welcome to the Living Centred podcast, a podcast all about learning together how to live lives which are centred on Jesus. Everyone lives centred on something. Our goal is to learn together how every area of our lives, everything about who we are and how we live, can be increasingly oriented around Jesus and transformed by Jesus. He invites us to a rich and satisfying life, where the good news that He truly is enough changes everything about how we relate to God, ourselves, and the world. In each episode, a different person shares about what it's looking like for them to seek to centre their life on Jesus right now. As we hear their stories, we get to learn together and to encourage one another in what it means for Jesus to be at the centre of our lives. This is a journey we are all invited to, and a conversation we all get to be a part of. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name's Adrian, and it is so good to welcome you to this week's episode of the Living Centred podcast. And it is my privilege to introduce today Gemma, who will be sharing. Gemma, it is very good to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
That's going to be good. To ease you in, as I do each week for everyone, I wonder if you could just start by sharing a little bit about who you are and what your life looks like at this point in time.
Yeah, sure. I'm Gemma. I have been married to my husband Ralph for 7 years next month, which is great. I know everybody's going to ask about my accent, so I'll just get in there immediately and say that I was born in the UK, but I've lived overseas for most of my life.
Yeah.
And we moved to Birmingham from South Africa in 2020, which is an interesting time to choose.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. We love it, though. We've been a part of Oasis for 2 years now, possibly more.
Wow.
Yeah, we're having a great time. Professionally, I should probably tell you about that too.
Yeah.
I'm a veterinary surgeon.
Yeah.
I'm busy doing my postgraduate certificate in small animal internal medicine.
Wow.
So hugely nerdy, but I love it.
That's amazing.
Thanks. I like doing other things in my spare time. I do pottery, I do running. I spend time with my many, many pets because that is an occupational hazard. I am a singer. I have been on the worship team at Oasis recently, but it's something that I've always loved and have done in some capacity since very small. And I'm currently navigating life, including all the joys, some anxiety and grief as well. Earlier this year, we went through a really traumatic, complicated miscarriage.
Wow.
And it was one of the hardest things I've been through, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So we're navigating that too, with all the good stuff.
Wow. Oh, Gemma, yeah, I'm in. Like, as soon as someone says, yep, here's my life, and that is just such a full picture of just the wonder of, like, the different elements of what your life looks like, but also some of the realities that you've been living through, which sound incredibly painful. And so thank you for sharing that. And I guess I want to kind of ask loads about different parts of that, but I want to get to this next question because it is within those realities, both the highs and lows, the joys and the moments of deep suffering. This next question kind of comes alive of kind of what does therefore living centered on Jesus look like for you right now within all of that rich tapestry?
It's a really good question. And it's the one that I struggled the most with, because I really wanted to jump to your next question, which is, what am I doing? To spend time with Jesus. And I really felt Him challenge me and go, no, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
And when I spent the time to really think about it and talk to Him about it, like, He gave me answers that I really am proud of. So I'll share them now. The first one is listening intentionally, which is ever a work in progress. Because the world is very loud. And your own internal voice and struggles can be really loud. But I find when I listen to Him, He has a lot to say. And He speaks to me through pictures, through words, through songs. But when I really intentionally listen, He's very rarely silent. And that is like such a gift. Like I was so grateful for it.
Yeah.
And then he's also was talking to me about trust. Living centered on him right now looks a lot like trust. And that's a really hard one.
Yeah.
It's a hard one when things are going well.
Yeah.
It's especially hard when things are hard. And so given the last year, that is a challenge for me, but I've been trying to live in it. And I think I have been, not through my own strength, but I'm very good at doing things on my own strength.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of that listening is so deeply tied into that trusting of him. I was actually laughing with him the other day. I say with him because I imagine that he finds me very funny because I find him funny.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of laughing at the fact that I am so good at doing stuff in my own strength and really, really good at taking it back and then being like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Having to give it back to him again. And I just found it really funny in the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's just that. It's like that listening to him, you know, talking to him.
It's
and
really
trusting
good.
him.
I just love that. I love how you started it of saying, this is a question. And what I thought is, Jesus, what do you think? And I love that.
Well, I had to because clearly I was going to go the wrong way.
But it's really good. Yeah, I just love that element then of saying, what is it looking like? It's like, it's listening and it's trusting. And the reality is that sometimes those things are hard. And therefore I have to be intentional in both. And I love that of just then also the brutal honesty. And in both I'm learning. It's a continual learning curve of, I've not got this pinned down. There's more to discover, more to live in the good of. As you know yourself, and just saying, as I think all of us can find that of, I'll take it from here. I'm going to do this in my own strength. And then be able to go, why have I done this again? Kind of being able to laugh and say, what are you doing, man? Let's just get back to trusting.
Yeah. I think it's better to laugh about it and give it back to him than to beat myself up about it.
That's good.
Inevitably, I'm going to do it again. Like, we're human.
Yeah.
That's what we do. It's what the world tells us to do. It's what our inner voices tell us to do. It's always going to be a learning curve. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile.
Oh, that's really good, Gemma. Really good. So then if that's what it's kind of looking like, what helps you? Like, what helps you in living centered on Jesus like that, of listening, of trusting?
So there's a few things. So one of them is this podcast. Ralph and I really enjoyed listening to them on our separate commutes. And we listened to them in different orders, which is really interesting.
Amazing.
When I started the most recent and worked down and he started the first and worked, I can't remember, but we started on opposite ends and then we occasionally overlap and talk about it, which is really nice. Community is a really big thing. And I'm so grateful for the community that we have here. Building into our small group, you know, part of that is also the trusting. Those are the people that we're trusting with. I'm trusting with the things I'm struggling with that are praying for us, that are standing with us. And that's what we're doing with them too. And what they're dealing with, the highs and the lows. And I think that's part of that trust, because it's very easy when something goes wrong to say, I'm not going to step out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to talk to people about it. I'm not going to make myself vulnerable and talk on a podcast about it. It is much easier to do that.
Yeah.
And part of listening to him has been saying, okay, well, I will share this the way that I think you want it to be shared, because it will help others. It'll help me.
Yeah.
You know, holding on to it and keeping it like locked up is not helpful. So that's been a big thing. Music and worship has obviously been a massive thing. It's been a big thing my whole life. And I love worship music. Joining the worship team is something that I wanted to do from the minute I stepped in the doors of Oasis. And I felt God going, wait until my time. And I just said, okay, I'll wait. It's the longest I've not been part of a worship team whilst attending a church.
Yeah.
But his timing is good. That's great. He opened that door as we were going through all of this.
Wow.
And I just said, God, are you sure? I don't know.
Wow.
I don't have much to pour out right now. And he just said, do it. I've opened the door. That has been such a joy. It's really made my cup overflow, and not because I've been filling it, but because he's been filling it. Like, I don't go up on days that we worship and feel like, I'm pouring out everything that I have to feed the community. It's always him pouring into me and that being poured out. Yeah. And I'm so grateful, because I really didn't have a lot to pour out when he asked, but he's multiplied.
Wow.
And it's really been such a joy, but it also is like so deeply helpful to me to see him work that way in my life. Wow. To have something so big like taken in such a way,
Yeah.
and then to see so completely how much he gives.
Yeah.
I can't actually describe it. Like
yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing, and I'm so happy I get to do it.
Yeah.
And that I trusted him. I listened and I trusted, and it was hard, and it was so worth it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Gemma. I think that it's just utterly beautiful just hearing you say it. I've just like what helps you is the podcast. I love it how you listen and discuss it with Ralph. I just love that. I think the earthing of everything you've said in terms of the listening, the trusting is worked out within community, and how actually that trusting God is also trusting people.
Yeah.
And choosing vulnerability. And just then saying, yeah, and also it's what helps you is music and worship. But actually at a moment of learning to wait, God then opening the door when you're least expecting. And actually rather than that being something you then think, oh yeah, this is where I'm going to give, it's actually being something, oh yeah, it is me serving, but actually it's been me receiving.
Yeah.
And receiving in a way that I never imagined.
Never imagined.
Oh, yeah, really beautiful.
Something that's really helped me, which I think is really challenging, is just being honest with God about my feelings. Not feeling like I have to hide them from him. I can tell him how sad I am. I can tell him how angry I am. I can tell him how, in the positive way, how blown away I am, because not talking to him about them didn't help at all.
That's really, really good. Because God's big enough.
Yeah.
I think I'm learning that more and more. God, you are big enough, and only you actually are big enough to deal with the depths of what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I guess then it leads us into nicely the next question, which is like, what are you discovering then about who God is as Father, Son, and Spirit through all of this?
It does lead in quite nicely, because the first thing I wanted to mention is that the pictures and the messages that he has had for me look different and bigger to how I expected. You should probably expect from the King of all kings and the Lord of all lords, but I think sometimes in our lives we make him smaller than he is, or we'll get messages from him and we'll think, oh, I know why you have this for me, or what you're trying to say here. And not that that's completely wrong, it's just sometimes it's exactly what I think but more. Sometimes it's very different, but it's always been bigger than I expect, and that I can trust him. And I can feel how I feel about situations as well. Like both can exist together. Like I can trust that I went through something horrible. I can trust that he's going to use it in a positive way. I can trust that, he has more for us than that. And I can also still feel how I feel about going through that experience and be really angry or full of grief or sad that it happened as well. And I think that's something that we tend to minimize. It's like, well, if you trust him and if you believe he has great things for you, then why are you still sad about it? Like, that's maybe being a bit harsh, but it's not an unrealistic thing that society says to us. And I think, I'm just learning that he's big enough for both to be true.
It's really good.
I wrote down something that just like blew my mind while I was talking to him, but I wrote down, he is big enough to handle all that I'm processing. He is gentle enough to hold my heart, my hopes, even when I'm worried they're too fragile to hand over.
Oh, that's really good, Gemma. Can you read that again? Just read it. Just if you're listening to this in this moment, just stop what you're doing. Stop walking. Maybe, I don't know if you're driving. I guess, I don't know what you can do at this point. Maybe put the indicator on and just try and pull off somewhere safely and or hit the pause because you need to hear this and just allow what Gemma's going to say just to go to the deepest parts of your being in this moment.
He is big enough to handle all that I am processing. He is gentle enough to hold my heart, my hopes, even when I am worried they're too fragile to hand over.
Yeah, that's good. It's really good. I love it. I love just that thing of what am I discovering about God? Yeah, I'm learning to trust. I'm learning that I also can continue to be real because he's way bigger than I ever give credit for. That's a good thing. He's big enough. That's good. We're getting to the last question. It's the big one. So how are you changing? If we were to met you like 3, 6, 12 months ago, how would Gemma today look different to Gemma then?
Thinking about this, it felt like there's a real duality in it. So there's anxiety there that wasn't there before, that I'm still working through, and that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a depth of grief and a loss of naivety there that also wasn't there before. But there's also a depth of trust that wasn't there, a depth of awareness of how much I need him and how big he is that wasn't there before. And like I said, there's just like this complete joy and feeling of my cup overflowing when I get to sing to him, to connect with him, to serve our community. Yeah, it's just this real duality of feeling. And I feel like that is such a human condition.
Yeah.
And if anyone understands it, then he does. It's bittersweet. It's both sides.
It really is. I've used the word before, but I've got to use it again. It's really beautiful, Gemma, really beautiful, because I think it is just the reality of life. It is both, that you can live in both places. Sometimes instantaneously, you can be like, oh yeah, I'm just in this both places, and this feels weird, but it's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more one than the other. Yeah, it's just that reality of, I think I found comfort through different experiences and just knowing this duality actually of just Paul writing to Philippians where he says, to know Christ is to fellowship in the sufferings, but also to live in the power of the resurrection. And that's the way of Jesus. It's like, yep, there's the power of the resurrection and there's the fellowship of suffering. And Jesus is found in both. Yeah. Oh, it's just...
The verse of the day today on the Bible app is about Jesus calming the storm. And it made me think about that duality, because I was like, the disciples in that moment go from afraid they're going to die, sudden peace.
Yeah.
Like, your heart rate doesn't suddenly just go down.
No,
like, you're not just like,
okay,
I thought I was going to die. My heart rate was at like over 100. Now suddenly it's at 60 because you know what, we're good now. You know, like you're still feeling that adrenaline rush, but it's calm. And Jesus is being like, I got this. But that very human, like, flip-flop of emotion.
Yeah.
So it feels like living in that. Like, my heart rate might be super, super high still, and there might be some anxiety, but I also know he's got this.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good, Gemma. I always get to this point. I don't apologise for saying it. My heart is well and truly full, and it's a bit undone. It has to be said. I'm a bit undone by you sharing. Thank you for sharing. Honestly, openly, in the reality of just what life has looked like and is looking like. Yeah, I think out of the beauty, wonder of what you've shared, I think the thing I'm going to reflect on over this coming week is like your starting point in like, what does life look like being centered on Jesus at the moment is, I just thought I'd ask Jesus. And I just felt like, that's a great thing to do. I think I'm going to do that this coming week of Jesus, what are we enjoying in our relationship at the moment? What is it looking like being centered on you at the moment? And just listen. I think that's going to do me good. How about you, my listening friends? Out of the wonder and breadth and beauty of what Gemma shared, what are you going to be considering a bit more? Lastly, thank you so much for listening. And I want to pray for each and every one of us. I pray we would know more of the wonder of living centered on Jesus this coming week. Amen.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the Living Centered podcast. New episodes are released every Monday, and if you enjoyed this episode, please do like and subscribe on your chosen podcast provider to receive them direct each week. Living Centered is produced by the team at Oasis Church in Birmingham, UK, and you can find out more and get in touch with the team via theoasischurch.com.